the real nature of relationship between China and Russia? Of course, you have this strategic partnership, but exactly what does that mean?
So, first of all, as we can see, this is the 21st regular meeting between our prime ministers. That means that this mechanism between Russian and Chinese government already exists more than 20 years. And it's very highly qualified, organized, and it's diversified on the all necessary items of the economic or social items and regional and other cooperation. So that means that Russian-Chinese cooperation now is a very high level, and it's on the practical level, not just some political games.
I see. It's at a pragmatic level, as you said, sir. That's interesting because if you look at the trade and economic ties, it does indicate to some extent that specific adjective you use, the China-Russia relations based on mutual respect, as they say, as well as win-win economic cooperation. Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev says economic cooperation between Russia and China is meeting expectations. Take a look at this. This year, bilateral trade exceeded $40 billion US. Moscow and Beijing hope to increase bilateral trade to $200 billion US by the year 2020. What's going to contribute, Mr. Cui, to that 200 billion by 2020?
Yeah,
Where's
exactly.
the growth space?
Yeah, frankly, compared with political trust and strategic cooperation, this economic trade cooperation between China and Russia is a weak point in the relations. Also, even we do have ambitious goal to reach very, very high trade volume on the bilateral trade. But also, because of a very, very difficult environment, especially on the Russian side, because of sanction by Western countries and also the devaluation of the ruble. I mean, it shows that, especially last year, indeed, on the quantity, and we do have a increase of trade. But if it's it is exchanged to US dollar, very, very big job done. So yes, it gives a very, very big challenge to China and Russia how to reach a very ambitious trade volume goal in the year of 2020.
Right. Of course, at this moment, Mr. Sanakoev, your president, your prime minister is talking about the Eurasian community, hoping that could open a door for the future economic development of your economy. But in China, as you also know, there is another idea, Belt and Road Initiatives, OBOR, as they say, which is also covering very similar areas, Central Asia, going to Europe as well. What's likely to be the relationship between these two initiatives? Can they really cooperate? Eventually, this is blueprint. Are they really likely to bring us real cash, real development, and real potential?
I think it's very natural. Look, we are two big countries, neighbors. We have the longest border, more than 2,000 kilometers, and we can cooperate together. We can trade together without US dollars. We can make our accounting in our national currencies. So certainly that's why we are thinking about more deep integration processes. So these two ideas, these two doctrines of the integration of Eurasian countries and One Belt, One Road politics certainly would be mostly interesting to coordinate those two ideas. And this is very natural. We do this now, and we arrange all necessary things to make it, even if it's necessary, to open trade zones and make it free trade zones.
Right.
That means that Russia and China are ready to provide all necessary workshop of this kind of integration.
Integration, political will is there. But the thing is, whether the business community are extremely interested in this, particularly, Mr. Cui, I have to point this out, that China and Russia are at very different development stage, even though they belong to emerging economies as a whole, but very different if you look at the nature of their economies. and the potential growth spaces and their interactions with the rest of the world. So how should we approach this?
Yeah, exactly. We do have a very different economic structure. But I think now maybe we have a very good opportunity to make some more difference, together, and to have some common direction, which means that both China and Russia now we are at a stage of how to upgrading our economic structure. For China, we do need to export some more production or industry capability. And for Russia, as we know, with a very, very single economic structure of relying on energy. But of course now, according to President Putin and the Russian government, they want to have a comprehensive economic structure. So I think that's also the reason why now we are looking for integration between Belt and Road Initiative and the Eurasia Economic Union proposed by Russia side to have some more connectivity, have some more cooperation in manufacturing or some other industry sectors. I do believe we do have some opportunity here.
That, of course, is about the economic trade, and strategically, of course, the two countries have never short of a momentum to build a partnership. Having said that, though, we've seen, Mr. Sanakoev, that there has been some complicated circumstances in the Asia-Pacific region, particularly in Asia, whether it's nuclear, whether it's territorial disputes, whether it's seeking a new order or new streamline of order in the region. On that part, what role does Russia want to play? As a result of that, what can China and Russia do together besides, joint military exercises, showing their consent together on some of the important things at the UN Security Council?
More than 4 years, Russia declares that we are going to develop Russian economy and to integrate into Asia-Pacific region through the development of Far East region of Russia. And certainly we are looking for China as our neighbor, natural neighbor, as a strategic partner for such kind of development. As you know, yesterday it was set up the already fifth intergovernmental commission, which is responsible now for the cooperation in the project of development of Russian Far East and Baikal region and northeast region of China. So that means that we will coordinate and all our facilities to make this development more coordinate and more sufficient for both countries.
Right. On the one hand, Mr. Cui, China does have a very pragmatic reason to cooperate with Russia on many of the strategic interest points. But on the other hand, there's also the question that I mentioned earlier. China and Russia are being perceived by the rest of the world very differently. Also, very different development stage, very different even political systems. And there are many other differences between these two countries. That's natural born. So at this stage, strategically, how close do the two want to get together? And how close would be the best for the two of the countries?
Yes, I think it's a question about the distance, as we understand it. I think firstly, because China and Russia, they are the biggest neighboring countries to each other. So I think it gives a very, very big requirement for both countries to have a peaceful and maybe harmonized coexistence between them. So if we look at this establishment of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and especially this very, very special partnership of coordination, we can find out firstly, both two big countries need to keep peaceful coexistence. And secondly, as we know, perhaps because of the force from outside, from other countries, I think give a very, very big momentum for those two countries to stand together. As we know, especially once the United States or some American people regarded China and Russia, both of them, as a threat to United States. So that's the reason why I think that the China and Russia, they regarded themselves as both of them as a positive or active force in the international community to keep a so-called strategical balance.
Interesting point over there. Of course, even reflected by the U.S. presidential election campaigns, Mr. Sanakoev, you could see Russia is being accused for spying on the presidential campaign process and also on some of the political parties over there. While China, the China bashing in the U.S. presidential election has always been a practice every 4 years. So does the being perceived as competitor and even as enemy by some necessarily going to bring China and Russia closer together? How sustainable is that close, shall I say, relationship?
I know for sure that Russian-Chinese relationship is not against to any country of the world, certainly not also against USA. We are developing our relationship as neighbors, and we are doing this, first of all, thinking about our own economies and our own people. So and we are open in this relationship, but this is the most important difference between what they are doing in, for example, Trans-Pacific Partnership or Transatlantic Investment Partnership. They are doing these partnerships especially against Russia and China, and they declared this. And when we are talking about integration processes and our relationship, our strategic partnership, we always say we are open for any kind of countries to join this partnership, and let's make common effective business and relationship to each other. That is the most important difference. So I will repeat that Russian-Chinese relationship is not against any countries.
And finally, before we go, gentlemen, we see earlier in our footage the Chinese Premier Li Keqiang meeting warmly with his Russian counterpart, Mr. Dmitry Medvedev. These two countries have very strong political leadership. For example, Chinese President Xi Jinping, for example, Russian President Vladimir Putin. So what kind of aspirations will these two prime ministers working together with the president be able to aspire to or achieve? That, of course, is a very important question. At their working level, what's likely to be the aspirations? Mr. Cui.
Yes, exactly, as we understand, because those two presidents, I mean, Mr. Putin and Mr. Xi, they do have a very, very big idea on, especially we call it top-level design for policy, for strategy. Certainly on the government level, especially between two prime ministers, they do have some more space to have some implementation of some of this, bigger design, especially how to have a concrete design for example, the railway, high-speed rail, and from where to where, and how could we do something together, just like I mentioned before, that to promote bilateral trade and some other. So yeah, certainly, I think that's also the logic of this cooperation, very efficient, effective cooperation between China and Russia. We do have governments with a very, very high capability of implementation.
Oh, I see. Mr. Sanakoev, we only have 45 seconds for you. Sir, your thought?
Sorry?
Your thought on...
25 seconds for what?
The same question that I addressed to Mr. Cui.
Oh, the same. Okay. I understand. Certainly, as it was told already, Russian-Chinese relationship, political relationship, is on the very high level on the geopolitical stage of the world. And certainly two prime ministers and governments, Russian and Chinese governments, should do everything to make our economical cooperation as the same highness as a political relationship.